Hi everyone, my name is Shivani, and today I will be talking about oil in America, focusing on energy security, environmental cost, and global power. Oil has been a major part of the U.S. for over a century, and even today it still plays a huge role in our economy and daily lives. So, first off, I'm going to start off with how oil has shaped the U.S. economy for more than 100 years. Oil still powers transportation, industry, and national security, and it is still dominant even with the growth of renewable energy. And the main idea that I will be discussing today is that oil creates a paradox. It strengthens the economy, but at the same time, it causes environmental damage and long term risk. So, why does oil matter? I think that oil is very significant because it drives economic growth and it supports millions of jobs. And it is also essential in everyday life. So, for example, that goes for gas for cars, plastic, shipping goods, and many other things that we use in our everyday life. It is a very big key to global influence and trade. And without oil, many parts of our economy wouldn't function the same way. The rise of oil production. So, since the early 2000s, the US oil production has increased a lot. And this means new technologies such as fracking and horizontal drilling. And this is what brought their major increase in the oil production. And for example, places such as Texas and North Dakota saw huge increases in oil production. So therefore, that is when US became one of the world's top producers. And this completely changed global energy markets. And it also did reduce the reliance on foreign oil. Energy security. So, this increase definitely improved energy security because the US depends a lot less on foreign oil. Obviously, more domestic oil equals more independence. And this is important because relying on other countries can be risky, especially if there are conflicts or political issues. And this also brings less reliance on unstable regions. But, however, it does strengthen the national security. However, even with more domestic oil, the U.S. is still affected by global oil prices. So, even with these benefits, I think that oil has a serious environmental impact. Oil is obviously the major source of greenhouse gas emissions, and this does contribute directly to climate change since greenhouse gases are very significant and a huge contributor to climate change. Burning fossil fuels releases greenhouse gases, which all contribute to climate change. And also in the US, transportation is one of the biggest sources of emissions, and this relies heavily on petroleum. And it does slowly transition to renewable energy. And yeah. So, another very significant concept is carbon lock in. So, this can mean long term investments in oil infrastructures, um, things such as pipelines and refineries. And that means because we've invested so much money into oil infrastructure, which is why it is a lot harder to switch to cleaner energy. And even if better options do exist, the system is already built around oil, which does make it significantly more difficult to make that switch to clean energy. And this also keeps the society very dependent on fossil fuels. Global power and politics. Oil has a huge role in global politics. As said, oil does influence the U.S. foreign policy. And this does affect relationships with all oil rich countries, countries that do have a very high population of using oil and their usage and their dependency on oil. The U.S. often does build relationships with oil rich countries, especially majorly regions in the Middle East. And these relationships definitely can influence foreign trade, foreign policy, trade, and even extends all the way to military decisions. And this is why, by being connected to the military and the world's economic strategies. Environmental justice, and this is another issue that goes along with oil production. So, oil refineries and drilling sites are usually located near lower income communities, and this does mean that there is a higher pollution exposure, and this exposes people to more pollution and health risks, such as a huge one like asthma and other respiratory problems. This does create an unequal distribution of harm, which is not fair because while oil benefits the country overall, the negative effects are not shared equally. And this is where environmental justice comes in play because the people who afford, the people of low income are the ones that suffer through more higher pollution, which um, brings inequality. So, why does this matter to us? Why does this topic matter to us as college students, and why is it relevant to us? And I feel like this topic is really significant to us as college students because things such as gas prices affect our daily lives, especially if we do commute. And I feel like as if a lot of college students today do primarily commute, and most college students do drive. Also, climate change will impact our future careers, such as environment and a huge thing, which is quality of life. And a job market does shift towards cleaner energy, and not to mention we are the generation that will be making future decisions about energy policy. Ethics and integrity. There are also ethical issues involved. An ethical issue obviously is balancing profit versus the environment. And companies and governments have to balance making profits with protecting the environment. There is also a responsibility to be honest and use reliable scientific data when making decisions. And this is very significant both in the academic research and the real world policy. And at the end of the day, the responsibility is to reduce harm. So, what are the challenges of transitioning? So, since oil is deeply built into the infrastructure and most industries do still rely on it, transitioning away from oil is not easy. If we do switch too quickly, it could definitely hurt the economy and cause many job losses. So, To transition away from oil, this does require a gradual and managed transition, and this is said by the experts. Climate pressure. So, scientists do say emissions must decrease, and at the same time, climate change is becoming more important. As the days go by, global warming does choose to accelerate and become more significant in today's world. Scientists say we need to reduce fossil fuel use to limit global warming. This creates a challenge for the U.S. because it has to balance economic growth with environmental responsibility. So, in conclusion, oil is both beneficial and harmful. It gives the U.S. economic power and energy security, but it also contributes to climate change and inequality. Moving forward, the goal is to find a balance between both of these sides. Thank you guys for listening. Bye bye.